I mean, you can't hide the fact that astrology symbols are in churches all over the world. And I'm like, I love it. I just love to open people's minds to that there's more than we are taught. I always say I'm weird, but I know now I'm not weird. I think I'm more normal than most people now. But I used to always say I'm different. I'm different. I don't think like most people, whatever. And now I'm like, no, because everyone in my life now is like me.
Welcome back to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And what another incredible moment in my timeline. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with this incredible being. I want to welcome to the podcast Carmen Turner-Schott, who's an author and an astrologer and a healer and all things leveling up your consciousness. I want to welcome you to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, this is exciting. Things are turning for you through the turbulence of the frequencies of the universe, yes. As everyone might perceive life as this one big shitting the bed. All of a sudden, things have changed dramatically, haven't they? Yes. And I want to congratulate you for your new turn of events and how you're immersing yourself and embodying that path as something that is at 100% of your attention, which I think is fantastic. It's a celebratory moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so why don't we start with the origins of your divinity spark of desire?
Sure.
How you ended up here. And it's such an interesting path. It's fascinating how you ended up with what you're doing. And it's also a testament to people that they need to realize that when you put your attention and intention to whatever sparks that desire, it will eventually flourish and, of course, become a permanence.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really started out, I was born, I always said I was born different. I always felt different than everyone in my family and everyone around me. And I was very sensitive. I didn't know what intuition was at the time. I would dream things that would happen and I didn't understand it. I would sense, I was afraid of the dark. I always had to have a light on. I was just very open to the spiritual world. But, I was raised in the Midwest in the United States. So, the Bible Belt. So, it wasn't something that anyone talked about New Age or spirituality in that way. So I just naturally had a interest in these subjects. And I remember when I was 16, I had an experience that changed my life. Two experiences really, and they both happened the same year. The first one was I had a friend of mine that was accidentally shot and killed. It was a freak accident with this, some boys had a gun and they were passing this gun around town. It was a long story. So she was the first person I ever knew that passed away, that had died. And that really affected me greatly. It was a big trauma for me at the time because I had never lost anyone. I'd never been to a funeral or anything like that. And then that same year, I played basketball. I was a big basketball player, 3-point shooter and stuff. And I came back from a game and I had to have my door open in my bed where I could see out into the hallway. And our house was really small. Like my parents could see into my doorway. My brother and dad were on a fishing trip and my mother was home with me. So I was in a great mood, had a game, went to bed and had my light on, my door open. I woke up middle of the night and I'm laying there and I see this glowing orb of light in my doorway. And it was like the size, like bigger than a softball, but it was like translucent, watery, yellow, white. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? And I tried to yell for my mother. I had no voice. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. It's like it froze me. The only thing I had control of was my mind. And so I realized, oh, wow, I'm thinking, okay, I don't have a voice. I can't move. I can't go over to it. I don't know what it is. So it's floating there. And all I kept saying in my mind, because it was the unknown and I was terrified because it was something different. And I did believe in this stuff. I was always open to it, but seeing it was different when you really see it and you're awake. So I'm laying there and I'm like, okay, I open my eyes. It's still there. Like, okay, what the heck is it? I started saying, please don't have it come in my room. Please don't have it come in my room. This is what I'm thinking. And I don't know why I was so afraid of it. Now I hit myself, but at the time I'm 16 years old and I was terrified. So I'm like, and it never did. It just stayed in the door sill, floating. Then it took off. It would come right back and float in my doorway. Then it went into the bathroom and floated. And after laying there for what seemed like hours, it's like it released me, is the only way I know how to explain it. And I was able to scream, Mom, look in my doorway. Do you see it? And she's like, yes. My mother saw it too. So that was the first time I had someone that confirm my weirdness, okay, my experience. And so I'm like, she saw it and I'm like, what is it? She's like, I don't know. She's like, maybe it's a lightning bug. I'm like, no, it's huge. It's like too big to be a lightning bug. And she's rationalizing this, right? And I'm like, I couldn't, I just was scared to get up, and go to it. And so she said, go back to sleep. And it's fine. Maybe someone's shining a flashlight. And she went back to sleep. And I laid there terrified. I think I finally passed out of exhaustion after. And the next morning, she said, that was definitely not a lightning bug. I'm like, no. So after that, I started studying angels and spirit guides and ghosts and the pyramids. And I went into this little bookstore in St. Louis, Missouri called Mystic Valley, which is still there. I do book signings there still. It's pretty cool. And it was back in the 90s. This was 1993. And I bought a little astrology book, and it was called about Virgo, because I'm a Virgo sun. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so me. Like, oh my gosh, how is this so accurate? So I got obsessed with astrology and started teaching myself and got all these books and read and did learn how to do charts by hand. I mean, back in those days, we didn't have computers. So I would draw it out with rulers and do the aspects and look up the longitude, all that. Now I'm like, I don't know how I did that, but I did. And I started doing astrology readings for people for free in the St. Louis area. And I was in graduate school to get my master's in social work. And I wanted to be a counselor and I wanted to help people. And I realized that astrology was so much deeper than normal talk therapy. Like it validates everything about your life, how you think, how you feel, how you love, the things, your gifts, your talents, your relationships, your parents. I mean, everything is in your chart. And I would just tell people based on what I studied, what I'm seeing in their chart, this is what this means, just teaching the basics. It was really going through the basics. It's really teaching astrology on a basic level is what I love to do, to make it understandable so people can see, oh my gosh, this is interesting. Because people are a little afraid of astrology because they think it's like all this math and it's like this aspect and this transit. I don't get into that. I talk about the psychological part of it, like your personality. And I always have done that. And people would start to cry. How did you know that? I'm like, it's not me, it's your chart. It's a science. It's not like I do channel. I think I'm intuitive and I would pick up on things as well. But I really use the chart as very much of a tool of self-awareness. And I would say, my first business was called the Astrological Self-Awareness Center. That was my first website, back in those days. And I would just do it for free. And then people wanted to pay me. I'd send emails out on the campus and they'd meet me at the bread company or whatever. And they're like, you really should charge. Like, this is so good. And I didn't want to pay. I didn't want to charge. I felt bad about making people pay me. I went through that whole thing when I was in my younger years. And then I started getting busier and more people wanted, to meet with me. So I did a donation base, and then just through time, I built my side, astrology business, and I would teach it. I was a consultant at the Mystic Valley bookstore. I do charts on the, weekends. And then, I became a social worker and I moved all over the world because I was married to someone in the Air Force. And for 20 years, my whole life was complete change. Every 2 to 3 years, move. Lived in Germany twice, traveled all over the world. Just love being a traveler and exploring all the different churches and countries. I went to Egypt, went to Turkey, Ireland, all the places I've always wanted to go. So I did that for most of my first part of my life. And I've always kept my astrology business on the side, even though I was in a normal social work position, so to speak, helping people. I've done I mostly work with survivors of trauma. And so I'm also Reiki healer, Reiki master healer. I've been trained in pranic healing, all those things. So I believe in energy, and that's why astrology works, because it's energy. And so it's been my life. Like, astrology has been my passion. And people at my normal job, I keep it kind of secret. Like, a lot of people don't know I write books and that I'm a published author and stuff. I have 11 books, and my first one I self-published was in 2010, and it was based on my research about my own experiences. And I started realizing that people that had certain planets in the 8th and 12th houses, specifically in the birth chart, because there's 12 houses, that they had these unexplained spiritual experiences. And I started collecting stories from people from all over the world, looking at their charts. And that's when I created my Facebook groups, when Facebook was brand new, an 8th house group, a 12th house group of people that have planets in those houses, or that have Scorpio, Pisces energy, in their chart. And I wrote a book about it, and I wrote an article, and people started writing me from all over the world back in the old days, when we just had basic internet and, no social media. And I wrote that book. It's the Mysteries of the 8th House, Phoenix Rising. And then I've just been inspired. Like, I think I would say I got pushed more into writing. It kind of quit doing it for a while. You know how you go through cycles? And then it was like, I just had this feeling I'm not meant to do readings anymore or do consults. And it's like it died. Like, it was the desire to do it was taken from me. And that was hard, because I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't feel like doing a deep reading. Like, I did that so my whole life. So I took a little break from that, and I started writing. And I just started doing articles and all that, and doing normal stuff. And then I got pushed back into, okay, I'm going to do astrology again. And I would always just attract people that were interested in it. And I've always kept busy as a side job. And then something told me I really want to write a book about the sun signs, and I want to be a published author. So that all kind of fell into place. Probably it was like 2020. I think 2020 is when I got my first book published by an actual publisher. And then that opened doors, right? And then and I write because I love to write, and I love to teach. So I've been doing this on the side, but it wasn't enough. Like, lately I've been feeling like my whole life pretty much changed. I literally was standing in my kitchen, and I felt this hand on my shoulder, and it says, "You're done." I just heard the voice, "You're done. You can't go back. Like, it's over." Like, it's like that part of your life is now to be let go. So I knew I had to change my career that I dedicated 25 years to. And I was trying to reach a certain age, so I could get my retirement. It was about the practical Virgo side of me, but then I have this spiritual side of me too, right? So I thought, I had a good cry for about 4 days, but I knew I was releasing it, and that I knew when I went back in, I was going to resign. And that's what I did. And this happened like literally in February 2025. And then literally last week was my first week off of working full time in this job I've had for 7 years here. So it's been a big change. Last week was kind of rough. Now this week I started feeling, yeah, this feels right. And this is the funny thing, that I always tell people, like, when your life's changing, it's scary. And the one thing that kept me from embracing the universe's signs and blessings was fear. So it was fear. And I'm like, why am I afraid? Like, I have this other thing, these things I want to do. I can always get a job. Like, I know I can work. I'm a social worker. There's always going to be social work jobs, right? Everybody needs counselors. And I'm like, what am I worried about? Like, it's like you get so used to security and comfort. It's hard to change, especially because you're afraid of survival. People are afraid of, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do all these things? And I get it. But I knew it didn't matter, because it's like I was back and forth a little bit, and every time I think, no, I'm going to stay a little longer, and I was like, oh, doubting my own intuition, I'd have a sign, And this is the funny part about all of this, Ann, is that I need to rewind. So in January, I decided to take a manifestation course, like how to manifest, you know, your dreams, your goals, and it was called the 21-day challenge with Mike Dooley, and I didn't know who Mike Dooley was until I was asked to be a part of this 2025 update, and I was the astrologer that gave the update on this event, and he was part of this event, and I didn't know who he was. He was in The Secret, you know, things like that, the book. And so I took his 21-day challenge, change one thing. And my affirmation that I did in January, okay, before all of my life turned upside down, was I'm thankful for you're gonna like this. I'm thankful for creative, fulfilling, abundant, full-time work as an entrepreneur. And I had that hanging at my desk, you know, and I'm working my normal job, taking it every day on the phone, you know, working hard, then at night, doing my astrology, weekends, doing my and I read it every day. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. I want to be an author. I want to teach classes. I want to make money doing it full time. I want to be my own boss. You know, I was visualizing, doing all this stuff. Well, when all this started, it started happening, but it was, things have to be taken away, is what I realized. There has to be a sacrifice sometimes. You have to sacrifice something to get what you really want, you know? And that, it kind of hurt, I'll be honest with you, for a little bit. But then I'm like, no, then I felt such a peace about it. And people, you know, when I went to work, they were shocked. I mean, because I've been around longer than anyone, and I'm the one they would call for help and advice because I've been in the job so long. So it was pretty emotional, saying goodbye to everyone, and they were just shocked that I was leaving, and I was shocked too. I mean, I'm like, I know I gotta go, and they're like, "Are you serious?" No, like, you can't leave. And then I've even had some say that they may ask you to come back. I'm like, well, I'm not coming back. My time is done there, and I know it is, and now I'm at peace with it. But you know, it was fear of change that I think kept me in this unhappiness. I mean, I was not fulfilled in that job. I knew I was not doing what I'm meant to do. You know, in your heart, you just kind of know, you know. So that's kind of the journey, how I started, and here I am now, and I am on a whole new journey right now of where I'm meant to go and what the universe is going to bring me. And every day I get a sign or a little opportunity, you know, and I'm just listening to the signs. And my friend, she said, you know, when I was having a hard time about it, about leaving, she's like, you know, you asked for this. She said, you need to thank the universe. And I'm like, oh, but I did, because I was doing my manifestation, my affirmations in January, like, and everything started flowing. And it was like, and one of the things was, don't worry about the details. Let the universe figure out the details. You just focus on what your dream is, what you want to manifest. And so thoughts are things, you know, this was a big thing about it. And that's what I tapped into again, which I've always known these teachings and believed them. And I went to metaphysics school and learned all these things when I was in undergrad, but it's applying these things. Like, you can study and know all these spiritual teachings, and I used to read, I learn and study, and all, and you have to apply it. That's the hard part, is applying these things and being a living example for other people. Like, if I tell other people, think positive, you know, you can have what you want, you know, and then I'm not doing it myself, it's not a teacher. So that's kind of where I'm at. Any advice for me? No. Any advice for me?
Wow, you know, it's amazing, because it becomes so complex, but so simplistic. And truly, what you touched on is something that we refer to in Taoism as the selfishness that returns to the selflessness. But the center point of that is the sacrifice. And so everyone's like, oh, now when that makes you pucker up, and I share that word with you because on a humanistic level, that would refer to loss, and potentially the loss of life, to sacrifice yourself. That's where the needle goes within the human condition.
Yeah.
Mine retreats back to very a prehistoric sort of primal state of life taken, life given.
Yeah.
And if I sacrifice that, potentially could be the loss of my life, which is the only material that is so valuable to you through this journey. And so you're on this symbiotic tango between yin and yang as a Taoist. And yin is the absorption of all colors, and yang is the admission of all colors. And you are your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find that center point.
Yeah.
Is to find that merging of these incredible potencies that we refer to as the material. We refer to that as energy potential. That's the currency that we operate in this space.
Yeah.
That is what's being subject as potentially dualistic to non-dualistic self-realization, being able to unify all that together and once again apply it.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It's like our application, as you said, is the most important thing for anybody, but specifically for a Taoist is to being able to fortify this substance and transmute it. Because you mentioned the secret, and I find that interesting because a lot of people, I believe, were misled with the very construct of the secret, because one of the fundamental things that misdirects any person wanting to manifest is, what are your values? And for when you understand that everything is just nothing more than energy, the universe doesn't have a moral compass. So we're identifying with this completion and birth, which is the dance between yin and yang in this space that is a constant that can be accessed instantaneously. The sacrifice to the abundance is instantaneous. Everywhere you go, you can dive into it. So that understanding is a constant. So when someone asks you the values, this can be problematic, because when you lead with love, love is very limited at best because it's subjective. If you are whole, if you return to whole, as we understand it as from a Taoist perspective, the completion, the number 9 being the completion, then the rebirth, 9 within a polymath sense of reality would be 1 or 0. How is that possible? I don't need to understand it. I just know that's true. And so all of a sudden, the most potent number in this field of self-realization is that. And then you have the lens of someone as mastered and with wisdom teaching as yourself, from a biological and a psychological and a spiritual state, that you can apply these things through the charts of astrology, but then expand on the individual unique frequency of the seeker that can change this completion to birth at will. So,
it's interesting. You know, when I first started studying astrology, there wasn't a lot of books about the 12th and 8th houses, and that's where I had a lot of planets. So I got really obsessed with that, because no one could explain to me why I would dream things that would happen. And through my dreams, I get knowledge of the future, of like what's coming. and I didn't understand it, when I was young. And I wanted to learn why. And so astrology really validated why I was the way I was. And then when I got more into it, I realized astrology also shows our past lifetimes and our past gifts and things we bring into this life that we've already learned. That's our south node in the chart, which looks like upside down headphones. And then the north node is our soul mission this lifetime. And so I've always known that my north node is in Scorpio, which is the sign of death and rebirth and transformation. It's the sign of the phoenix. It's the sign of, you got to make changes and you got to sacrifice things in your life and let things go. It's about letting go and forgiveness and healing. And so Scorpio rules the 8th house, which I have my moon and Jupiter and some planets there. So I've spent my life researching it, and then as I get older, I'm like, the North Node in our birth chart is the most important thing in astrology. So if you don't understand astrology that much, but you really want to know the basics, like why you're here, learn about the nodes of the moon. And my friend and I, Bernie Ashman, wrote a book last year called Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon. And it's all about your soul mission, and we tell you how to find, calculate your birth chart, so you know what north node you have, what sign it's in, is the traits you're learning to master. And it's not comfortable because we are used to being in the past and what we've already learned, which is the south node. And whatever house the north node is in is the area of life that you're meant to focus on. So everyone can have different same nodes but different house, or flip nodes. Often we, like, parents usually have a child that has the flip nodes of them because they're teaching each other a lesson. And my daughter and I have that. She's 20 and she's a south node Scorpio, north node Taurus. I'm a south node Taurus, north node Scorpio. And so we're like butting heads because what she's mastered and learned, I'm here to do. And what I've learned and mastered, she is here to do. So we teach each other. And I've done hundreds of charts for parents and their kids. There's always a child that has the flip nodes of the parent, and they share with me the patterns. Like it's meant to be, like we choose our parents, I believe. So there's a lot that comes into it, but and then you're gonna have karma with certain people, and the charts can show that. It's just amazing, like how it plays out. And that's why I love astrology, and I've just made it like it's the thing I love. I mean, I've studied all kinds of different things, but it's the thing that is, I know it works, and I just feel it's such a good tool. And I love teaching people about it. And so I had a lot of validation my last week at work. I finally told my secret to one of my coworkers that I'm an astrologer and that I write books. And she's like, "What?" And so then her husband was interested because they didn't know. And I brought one of my books in for him, and he was like wanting to debate with me a little bit about what is it, like how does this work, and he got into, people are afraid of studying it because of the Bible and all these different philosophies and these ways they were taught to be afraid of these things. And I said, no, God created astrology. It's actually in the Bible. It's all throughout the Bible. And I taught a class about this years ago. So I started telling them the symbolism, and how in churches, the Catholic Church, the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac are in churches all over the world. And I saw them and I'm like, okay, why are the 4 astrology fixed signs symbols in churches? There's more to this. And I was telling him, and she goes, "Man, you get so passionate when you talk about this, like they'd never seen me so, happy and excited." And she's like, "You just light up when you're talking about astrology." I'm like, "Yep. That's why I know I have to do it full time. Like it's time for me to do it full time."
And that, when you use a potent tool like that, the simplicity, you refer to the potency of the moon.
Oh yeah.
And, within Taoism, that is the origin of all things. That's the void. That's the womb of creation.
Yes, the moon is.
I'm like, what? That charge that you and I are getting right now, that electric charge is a validation of the unity and the commune that we're having.
Yeah.
That is a validation. And people are like, how the hell do you know that? Well, because I'm watching it and I'm experiencing it at the same time. And people are like, you can see that? Yeah. Okay, it's a sensory perception. That's all it is. This is another thing that people are like, oh, well, my gift for this. Well, actually, all gifts are everyone's. And when you find that path, you can cultivate it. And that's why we refer to it the method to the madness.
Yeah.
Having a mastered, repeatable state returns validity and valid sort of experiences that takes you from a seeker to a knower. Furthermore, from someone who's having a psychotic break to a self-realized master is really part of that, right? I mean, you've had such an extensive experience dealing with people that are being violated mentally, emotionally, physically, and then having to pick up the pieces and give them some type of way of moving back to what we refer to as hopium.
Okay.
And hopium is generated from some type of support or validation of what they've gone through,
Yeah.
to give them evidence that there is hope, there is a potential life after this experience. And
Yeah.
that is what we like to call an adaptation of the stress of contracting to expanding.
Yeah.
As we Are we back? We're back. Are we
Yes,
back?
there you are. There you are. This is Mercury retrograde. This is Mercury.
The frequency. I do this to people all day long. Every time I do a podcast, it's like when it starts to the frequency and the resonate, it gets higher. It goes boom, and you're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
day in the office.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
that symbiosis, the reality of all things is
Yeah.
you're contracting and expanding at the same time.
Yeah.
You are all things and nothing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
There you are. That was
you
cool.
back again?
Yeah,
And
we're back again.
yeah, so the resonance is just the potency and the ability to master and hold what you would consider this sweet note. As you start to feel into your humanness through the lungs as a tuning fork, you can start to level up all these things and realize that that's all it is.
Yeah.
And so you have to find that center point.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to adapt to that center point. We call that the elasticity, which is the unified state, the Wu Ji, the primordial mother.
Yeah.
When you enter that center point, you access everything. You will refer it as the Akashic records.
Yeah.
Or if you hold that resonance, we refer to that as Wu Wei, which
Okay.
is effortless action, effortless effort, synchronistic, serendipitous
Yeah.
knowing.
Yeah.
And you're like someone who keeps stepping in shit. It's like, it's good to be me. Every second of every minute, because you have that potential. You are all things or nothing.
Yeah.
Whoa, Jiffu, what does that even mean? Always talking the third person. I think I got that from a bunch of talking heads, probably Bruce Lipton specifically. Fastest way to is through that symbiosis.
Yeah.
Imprint that into a knowing in someone's unconscious.
Yeah.
So what does that even mean, Jiffu? Well, the simplicity of it is you are at that precipice from selfishness to sacrifice. Within that center point, you have the ability to choose. That is the potential of free will.
Yeah.
And so, going down the path of something that is a permanence only because of the outlay of what you perceive as your reality. So anything, it doesn't matter what it is, has that ability to be altered.
Yeah.
Would you, how would that apply to astrology? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. It kind of has, it reminds me of a question I get a lot about, am I, with free will? And Edgar Casey in some of his readings, he said astrology's fact, but there's no greater power over man than his own will. And so the chart, people ask me, well, this is in my chart, they get worried. Is there anything I can do to prevent some of these things in my birth chart? And I always tell people I always see it's a little bit of both, because they're like, is it destiny? Can I change this? There's certain things in our birth chart that we can work on if we're aware of it. If we know the energy and the pattern and the chances, right? You can prevent some things. Like if you attract unhealthy partners because you have Neptune in the 7th house or Pluto there or whatever, you can be, if I get someone young enough, I can give them tools and tips, and help them see relationships in a healthy way, right? And so you can prevent some things. But there's some things in astrology, which I've lived through myself, that are meant to happen. Your chart is kind of a map of your destiny. So some things, regardless of what we do, they're destined to happen to us because we chose to learn a certain lesson. And if these things didn't happen, we would never get to where our soul wants to go and fulfill our soul mission, So I always say it's a little bit of both, but pretty much there's these patterns that are meant to happen, and they play out in different ways for everyone. That's why astrology is so accurate, because the planets affect everyone the same way. Like right now, Mercury's retrograde. So it is messing with computers and technology. It's messing with communication. People aren't getting emails. They're not getting phone calls. They're misinterpreting what someone says. There's a little bit more like a gremlin in the communication sector. It happens 4 to 6 times a year. I mean, it happens 4 times a year for 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not something that doesn't happen often. It happens all the time. And I was just laughed, because as soon as it starts to happen, I see all of it playing out around me. I mean, in the real world with other people, and they're like, what's going on? Like I sent something and they said they never got it, or I didn't get my paycheck out of the blue, didn't get paid in the system, computer glitch or whatever. And so the moon is so powerful in astrology, because it rules our emotional nature. It's our true soul. Like, it's how we love, how we find comfort and happiness and joy. The moon is everything. The moon sign's more important than the sun sign in astrology, because the moon is who you really are, and who you are vulnerable with. Like, a lot of times you don't show people your inner self, and that's the moon sign. And so the tides of the ocean, the full moon, the cycles of the moon, all of that affects our emotional nature. So every day, like, people say, I'm feeling this way. I'm like, well, the moon's in Scorpio. The moon is here. The moon changes signs in the sky every 2 to 3 days. That means every 2 to 3 days, we have a different energy affecting our emotions, and we just think, we're just living in it. If you don't believe in energy, people don't really notice until they start looking at this stuff. And so I try to teach people to watch the cycles of the moon, and how it affects their emotions, their feelings, how it affects how they feel, their body, how it affects their sleep, how it affects what their habits are, basic stuff, because I know it affects us. And how do I explain it? It works. I don't know why it's 1% accurate, but it is. And I believe it's because it's the universe. I mean, the planets are there for a reason, and there's many different, all the planets that we have discovered so far, the outer planets were discovered when we had major historical events in the world. And so it's like Pluto. When Pluto, was discovered, they're saying, oh, it's when the atomic nuclear weapon was invented. It's like cataclysmic change. That's what Pluto represents. And then people are saying, oh, Pluto's not a planet. It's like, the scientists said that. Well, it is. And because if Pluto transits one of your houses in your birth chart, believe me, it. And I've seen it. Like, that's why I believe in this so much, is that it's a science, but it's also a spiritual tool. It's both. That's why I like it. And because I know that it was created so long ago in ancient times, and it's even in, hidden many ancient texts. Then there's Eastern. I mean, there's different types of astrology too. I have a friend my best friend's from Korea, and she knows Chinese astrology. So I'm a rabbit. She teaches me, and everything, like you said, is about the moon. And the moon is the big thing in lunar. And so in Western astrology, it's the sun, the sun's path through the 12 signs. But all of it is symbolic of different religions, and people can get, very freaked out when they really start learning about astrology and religion, and astrology and Christianity, and all of these hidden things within the Bible. And then there's all these books that were written that we don't even have, that aren't in, the Catholic Bible is different than the Protestant Bible. And then, I started researching all this because I minored in philosophy and religion. And so I was like, okay, the Catholic Church used to teach about reincarnation. Okay. And it's St. Jerome. I had a whole book, a theosophy book about St. Jerome, believed in reincarnation. It was part of the Catholic Church. Then they took it out. It's like all these secret teachings, they're called secret teachings, but they were teachings that they hid. They didn't want normal people knowing about it. And when you start looking, I mean, you can't hide the fact that astrology symbols are in churches all over the world. And I'm like, I love it. I just love to open people's minds to that there's more than we are taught, you know. Um, I always say I'm weird, but I know now I'm not weird. I think I'm more normal than most people now, but I used to always say I'm different. I'm different. I don't think like most people, whatever. And now I'm like, no, because everyone in my life now is like me. They know that they're open-minded. They have, oh yeah, I saw an orb, but so everyone I know is into this stuff. So it's like, but when I was growing up, I was the only one. And like UFOs, all of these things. I saw UFO in 1995, and no one can convince me it was not a UFO. I had my friend with me. It was amazing experience. I have not seen anything like that since. But it was like the sky opened up, a saucer shape light hanging across I-44 in Missouri. If you've ever drove through Missouri, major highway, I'm pulling off to my hometown exit. It was clear night, full moon, and it was just there hanging. So I pull over and these other cars got out. I got out and just stood underneath it. It was a saucer shape light hanging huge thing. And before my eyes, it shrunk and disappeared like within seconds. It didn't blink lights or hover around, or it was like gone. And my friend was pretty upset about it because she didn't believe in this stuff. And so she was like really scared. And I remember, it's okay. I said, we just saw UFO. She's like, but is it aliens? I'm like, I don't know, but it's not from Earth. I'll tell you that, And so I always was open-minded to things and in people's experiences. Like, I don't judge people because I've had really strange experiences that when I share them, no one would believe it. They would think I'm crazy. And as a counselor, I have if someone's open to the spiritual side, of course, I can, I don't bring it up unless it comes up, or so I keep it separate. I've always had it separate from what I do as a normal psychology, social worker, whatever. But I would tell you this is why I love astrology. I can do a year of counseling with someone and meet them once a week, and then they're not getting better. I can do one session on someone's astrology chart for 1 hour, and it's like 8 sessions of deep therapy. And I see change. I see that they feel better because there's validation to why their life is the way it is and what they can do about it. What is affecting them. And it gives them a sense, oh my God, that makes sense. Like, why did this happen to me? I have people that come to me that have had tragic loss in their life, tragic loss, car accidents, lost their whole family. I mean, fires, you name it. And there's always something in the chart that shows the change. And then when they start realizing it, then they get into astrology, right? And they want to learn. And I think we all have our gift. We all have a tool or a spiritual tool that we're meant to use when we're here. And astrology's always been mine. I never swayed to anything else as passionate as I was about astrology. And I don't know why that is, but it's just been my thing. I've studied all the different, tools and things. I have a pendulum, and I'll do it once in a while, but astrology is my thing. And I just love to teach about it, to open people's minds and to talk about it on a basic level, because when I'm on other podcasts, they always say, oh my God, you explain it so simply. And one of the ways I explain it, because some of the podcasters like, I don't understand like how like it confuses me. I don't want to study it because it seems really difficult. I'm like, no. It's pretty much the basic way to explain it is, when you're on Earth, the moment, time, place of your birth, if you're looking up at the sky when you're born, all of the planets, the 10 main planets, are in a certain star constellation, which are the 12 zodiac signs. There's 12 constellations, and they're in a certain area of the sky. So astrologers break the sky into like a pie, like 12 sections in the sky. And we take a picture of the sky on the day, moment, time, place of your birth and put it on a piece of paper. And that is a wheel. And the wheel, it has 12 houses and they're numbered. And the earth is in the center of it. And so that is the map of your soul, the map of the sky, the map of your soul. It's energy. Your soul came in at that moment, time, place of birth. Even twins can have a different moon sign, a different emotional nature, a different sun on the cusp and going into a different house. Twins can be very different because their charts can be slightly different. If they're born 3 hours apart, the rising sign can change because the rising sign in our birth chart changes every 2 hours. Or two, yes. So it moves. So time of birth is everything. What time you're born is very important. We can do, people always come to me, Carmen, I don't have my time of birth. It's okay because we can do a chart rectification. What that means is, first of all, I'll ask for a picture of someone. I need to see their physical face, what they look like. Because the rising sign is your physical appearance. It's how people perceive you when they first meet you. And it's also your physical body. You know, it's right there on the first house cusp. It's how you look. So like Leo risings, for instance, they're known to have sometimes red hair, sometimes thick hair, curly hair. They're known for their hair, right? And their energy, their confidence and stuff. So I can sometimes, if I can guess someone's rising sign, I can get an accurate birth chart if they don't know their time. We can mess around with it. I also can ask life events. You know, did your parents divorce? You know, have you gone through any of these things? So we can get an accurate chart. And I've been able to do that for people that were adopted or, you know, they didn't know when they're born, what time. They just know the year and the date and the place. And so the time is important because it can change what planets are in what house. So I can look at a chart and I can know your basic energy even without a birth time, but the time makes it more precise and more accurate and more deep to tell you about yourself. You know, so when I'm doing a chart, I'm not telling you anything you don't know about yourself. That's why people like it, because it just validates what they know. They already know about their personality. They already know how they love and their trust issues, or if they're controlling or if they're obsessive. You know, they already know, right? I'm just telling them what they already know, but I'm validating it with their birth chart. And that's why I love it, because people are like, oh my gosh, like this is me. I'm like, yeah, it's you, you know. So it's the map of our soul. And it helped me in my life. I mean, that's why I like it, you know. And my daughter, you know, she was raised around all of this. She kind of went through a phase where she didn't want anything to do with it, you know, like, oh, this is like, you know. And now she's older and she's like, Mom, can you look at my charts of my friends, you know? And or she'll say, Mom, I'm not feeling good, you know, what's going on in my chart, you know? And I'll look, and there's always something, you know. And I even feel that way sometimes, and I'm like, okay, what is going on in my trans? I'll pull my own up. I'm like, oh yeah, you know. And you know, it'll pass, because that's the thing. Some of the planets stay in a certain sign and house for a long time and affect us for many, many years. And that's like Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. Those are pretty hard transits that hit different areas of our life, and they last a long time, because it's a lot of learning and a lot of karma that we're dealing with, right? Like, for instance, Pluto in the fourth house. I lived through that. A lot of people will never have a Pluto transit of their home and family house. They won't ever have that experience because they weren't meant to. You know, they may have Pluto transit their marriage house or their career house. People will never have that. It really depends on each person's chart. So, like, a basic way of explaining it is, if you have Virgo rising, like everyone that's Virgo rising is going to experience similar transits. Everyone that's Libra rising is going to experience similar life transits. It could be one person may be a little ahead of the other in experiencing those energies. Someone might be coming up behind them. And then, so I just had this happen when I did a group this Sunday with some ladies. Two of them have Virgo rising like me. And when you do the transit chart, very similar. We're all going through a similar experience right now. Then some of the ladies, they are getting ready to go through what we have been through already. So we were able to give them advice. Like, this is what happened when Uranus went through my 8th house or my 7th house or whatever. And that's like sharing stories to help prepare, because it is a lot of change, and we have to change in our lives to grow. And I find that that's the thing people fear the most, is making changes.
Well, I think you're referring right back to, I learned this the hard way 36 years ago when I started,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
clairvoyant interactions, channeling my teacher,
Yeah.
witnessing a physical healing, gangrene flesh back to pink in color in 40 minutes, which
Wow.
I see bones fuse, tumors disappear, gashes seal before my very eyes. This is a normal day in the office for me. So what is the consistency that makes
Yeah.
that possible? Is there is no impossible.
Yeah.
And so referring back to that bellows effect of that symbiosis of yin and yang,
Yeah.
that is the material of this state, right? So what are we limited by? As your curiosity, as your Sherlock to your Watson,
Yeah.
through the labyrinth of human condition to human being,
Yeah.
is what people refer to as the intellect. So
Yeah.
you have spark of desire that turns into inquiry, contemplation, then births a curiosity. Curiosity
Yeah.
feeds hopium. Hopium moves into belief. Belief is only met with experience.
Yeah.
So, like the temple, I always tell people biology, astrology, neurology, physiology
Yeah.
is one lens of your experience, and
Yeah.
it's only met for validation
Yeah.
as your experience. So, if that truth is validated through this material state as true,
Yeah.
then that is your knowing. So
Yeah.
you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And I love the way that you're sharing this path of self-realization through the lens of astrology. And your validation is it's never wrong. Look,
Yeah.
I can tell
Yeah.
you it's never wrong. I will tell you this: when I gave someone a prediction of their death, as in 2 months, 3 hours and 14 seconds from the day that I was first
Yeah.
given this superpower of self-realization, and they died 2 months, 3 hours and 14 seconds to that second. And then I came to my teacher, Lao Tzu, and I said,
Yeah.
what, why, why am I experiencing that? That is so traumatic for me.
Yeah.
Be the giver of someone's predicted state of
Yeah.
this is your path, this is what's going to happen to you. And he's like, well, that's part of your experience of learning. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Mean I was under the understanding that anything is possible. He goes, yeah. So what does that mean? It means that you can step in to
Yeah.
that center point, and the possibility for that person, once they understand the cultivational practice. That's why Taoist alchemy is second to none. We
Yeah.
have a system. This is the sun, this is the earth, and the lower Dantian is the moon. What
Okay.
people don't get, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of people teach this stuff and they're full of shit. They
Yeah.
don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Most of my students come from mainland China across Asia to
Yeah.
learn these type of techniques because they're not taught. Whether you're looking at someone like Mantek Chi or any so-called Taoist guru,
Sure.
you are not understanding the potency of the primordial mother. The void is
Yeah.
the creation and animation of all things.
Yeah.
And so what that means is once you detach and attach as that now moment, because I've never witnessed anything of healing
Yeah.
that's not in the past, not in the future, it's now. When I see a healing, when I experience a healing, when I witness a healing, when I participate as the primordial mother, and most of the people that come to me are, oh, you're that guy I had to call. My grandmother's in a coma. The doctor told me she's going to die tomorrow.
Wow.
And I go, no. And they're like, whoa. They said you would say that. And I'm like, the next day she wakes up out of the coma, full vitals. And the doctor's like, what the is going on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
this is the permanence is nothing more than a transitory state that you have attached.
yeah.
And this is this symbiosis. So my teacher, Lao Tzu, is my dialogue with the monologue.
Oh,
So I have a relationship. I see him as I see you. I
okay.
have conversation with him and hear his voice as I hear yours.
Yeah,
And I have 171 other teachers that I lean towards for information. You would refer to it as what you would call your Akashic record.
yeah.
This is a dialogue that I have with what we call the monologue, which is the primordial mother.
Okay,
So
neat.
there's no separation. Once you
Yeah,
are the substance, which is what we call the pajun, the animation, and you can materialize things that come from telekinesis, pyrokinesis,
yeah,
uh, levitation, clairvoyance, mediumship channeling. These are
yeah,
all abilities of sensory perception to develop, being able to play with this substance that we call energy potential.
yeah,
The merging of electric and magnetic potential is a state of unification. If
yeah,
you regress it back to someone that wants to argue the position of physics, the 0 point, the scalar wave, the entanglement,
yeah,
that the with Lao Tzu, and this is going to go contradictory to a lot of my friends that are Akashic Records experts and readers and all this
yeah,
guy. I love them to death,
yeah,
but they're pandering a fear-based reality with the year of the nine. The 2025 is a point of completion but creation, but you can enter it at will. And when I say willpower is nothing more than you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know.
yeah,
And furthermore, injects
yeah,
your programming to how you perceive reality,
yeah,
right? Because that belief system to knowing is only met with experiences.
yeah,
Because you would have to be realize that, guess what, you can give someone, and I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times. I
yeah,
get two people, I've got throat cancer, okay, I'm going to beat it. The simplicity between the two differences of the path of self-realization, 6 months later, one person is dead, one person isn't. What is the differentiator? One person believed it, the other person was just telling themselves what they wanted to hear.
yeah,
So that belief system is only met with experience.
yeah,
So when we water it down, because Taoists have this, infinite um, uh, relationship with the whispers of the universe. This is how the Chinese culture was created. Furthermore, my teacher, the
yeah,
Yellow Emperor, was the actual catalyst through his being magnetized to the earth for 18 days and nights,
yeah,
thousands of years ago. Hearing the whispers of the universe created Taoist alchemy, furthermore, Taoist metaphysics,
yeah,
and all the things that are watered down that some people call subsections of that, which you refer to as Chinese medicine or some type of healing. The four pillars of Chinese medicine
yeah,
is potent is energy potential,
yeah,
whether it's herbology or massage,
yeah,
um, acupuncture. These are all just tools. I always remind
yeah,
people this is why you can come to Carmen and have a reading and go, holy shit, this works. You can go to another person who's a
yeah,
self-professed astrologist and the shit doesn't mean anything. And so just because you have a method does not
yeah,
materialize in a permanence or a certainty. And this is where I get students all day long across the globe. Chinese medicine doctors. And we'll talk about telemedicine. That's something I'm getting into. And
yeah,
all this type of stuff
yeah,
is limited by your experiential moment that validates the
yeah,
truth. It's like I'm a Pepsi challenge guy from the 80s.
yeah,
Take the Pepsi taste test with anyone. Show me what it means to you, because
yeah,
the direction of my laying down the framework of someone's imminent demise by giving them a prediction that they're going to die
yeah,
was a sobering slap across the face. And
yeah,
furthermore, Lao Tzu was like, well, now you understand that your variable is the now moment. That alters the direction of all things. That symbiosis of completion and creation within yin and yang is not limited by anything. It is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. There is anything that can take place. And so when we look at the 2025 landscape,
Yeah.
It was very clear at the beginning of this year. It's going to be an ushering in of the merging between the sun and the earth, and the magnetism of the earth inverting that energy that will be elastic and rebound in a transitory state, that someone will move from a Schumann resonance of a 7.8 frequency, which is what happens when you drop your feet on planet Earth as you wake up in the morning. Unfortunately, when you add coffee, your personal experiences, and everything else, your brain waves go into the 12 to 18 range, and you're going to have a shit show all day long.
Yeah.
This is how you're going to be the catalyst. Your myopic focus will be the very detriment to your reality, as opposed to the actual effect of that frequency that will sit within a 40 to 60 hertz permanence. And he predicted this, not prediction, I'm not going to call it. He just talks about the ebb and flow of the frequencies of the universe.
Yeah.
So it's at face value, from a humanistic perspective, everyone is going to perceive reality as a shit show, and the death of finances, the death of reality, the death of the World War III. None of that shit's going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter how bad people want to get caught up in that state.
Yeah.
It's going from a heightened state, and it's going to keep merging back into the earth, grounding more and more people and their access and revealing of this consciousness that will change their brainwaves as a default, because the earth, which is a byproduct of the mother, is going to show that through the experiencer on planet Earth. So it's going to continue. It's going to continue going like this as we continue to go through. So more people are going to be enriched. More people are going to be aware. More people are going to find the simplicity of what we call perfection through the course of 2025. And a lot of my occultic buddies and channelers and predictors of fear peddling, unfortunately, are going to give you a different version. And every month, Lao Tzu will give a reading, and he will just give you it literally. And I don't even look at it, because the cosmos is a beautiful thing, and I love to play with it, because that's the foundation of our magical square and the deep nature of Taoist magic.
Yeah.
How magic works within a Taoist path is it plays on the experiences dysfunction of the human condition. So when you have emotional states, when we lay the grid down on reality and we direct the energy however it's necessary for whatever the prescribed response, whether I have someone coming to me going, I'm building a house, you need to give me the directional understanding of where this material is going to lay on planet Earth. Find the power center, find the vortices, find all the specific, what we call, we use body dancing as a tool.
Yeah.
Grids, the ley lines, all these things are foundational to helping someone optimize their own experience.
Yeah.
And it also returns to that, but it's not limited by it. I've had people tear down houses because there's levels of impossible change of a turbulence. And they're sitting in a vortices that is literally drawing them, inverting them into the earth, and all of a sudden they're plagued by this deep seeking knowing, but also the echoing of nothing but fear and that poke at their emotional state, and they're trapped in an depressed possession. That's really what it comes down to. And to move back to that center point, to find the primordial mother, there are certain things that we do through their own cultivational practices to make that a return to their center point, their vesica, the Wu Ji. It happens within the breath.
Yeah.
One can access it within the breath. It's not limited to. And so I agree with you 100% on the path of astrology, but then I also go through the path of knowing that thing is possible. So it's only limited by your belief. It's like if I had a penny for how many people, and my mother's an example, right? So her default is fear, death, and destruction. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Is one big charmed slap in the face that she can't fight because her default is the true nature of who she is. So she would come in, and even with all the teaching that I've shared with her,
Yeah.
we always fall back in the humanist. We always fall back in this transitory state that you believe is reality, which is absolutely delusion. But it's another rippling effect of the universe, as you put it, as the planets align. There are options. The first basement level mastery of any Taoist alchemist, if I'm teaching them, is your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And they're like, whoa, 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 buddy. I was told that I am a victim to my circumstance. I am a victim to my pain and suffering, and I must endure that to adapt.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm really sorry. Now, let me show you how this works. And when they realize they can remove the emotion and the feeling like an icon on a computer screen, have the thought as wisdom and reflect on it at will, and they just expand again, they go, what the, how, why wasn't I taught this before? You know, I have clients that are accountants, judges, police officers, military. They use this potency to master their state. It's not that they're avoiding it. They're coming to the realization, returning to all the training and wisdom teaching you knowing, it is a frequency.
Yeah.
And you have an option. You can master that frequency. That's all it is.
Yeah.
If you can master that resonance, whatever's coming through as a macro of a micro, because it all exists within you, you can then transmute it into whatever you want, which is how we look at energy potential as a Taoist alchemist. And the evidence is manifestation, magic, healing.
Yeah.
I will show you, because it comes down to that mastery. So then people go, well, Jiffa, you said that the universe doesn't have a moral compass. No, I'm sorry. All that is personality, human condition, realm of man nonsense. I'm not going to say nonsense, but my personality speaking. But guess what? My personality is not required to be in the present moment to experience instant manifestation, healing, magic. That is not required. I like chocolate bonbons, driving my side by side in the desert 100 miles an hour, and also I still unfortunately contribute to this shit company called Netflix. Now, all that aside, I've never ever participated. Erasing your personality, assuming that you must surrender that because that's an expression of your immortal self. Within Taoist alchemy, we refer to it as bringing immortality and crystallizing it into the material state.
Yeah.
And so when people throw Taoism in a philosophy bucket, I go, yeah, it's kind of like Buddhism. Well, there's Taoism that's metaphysic. There's Taoism that's physiology or more philosophy. And then there's Taoism as a religion. It's all a transmuted version of the same thing.
Yeah.
When people look at Buddhism, Taoism, they go, oh, well, Buddhism and Taoism, it's an Eastern path of just Zen. I'm like, no, it's like yin and yang. It's complete opposite. They're like, what are you talking about? Well, Buddhism is this simple. Buddhism is a pile of shit covered in diamonds. And all my friends that are Buddhist monks that I'm aware of that have had a monastic past, they are sitting in the lotus position looking for dukkha. All they want is the distortion. They're like saying, I don't care about the energy potential, having you materialize as your immortal self and showing people miracles that raise their own consciousness, which is actually super normal. I like sitting here looking for the pain and suffering. And once the pain and suffering is gone, I toss away the avatar and I move on to the next experience. This is the completion. But, that's just 20 different Buddhist monks that I'm aware of that are my friends, though we have great conversation. But when it comes to their monastic path of self-realization, this is Buddhism. Now, they go, well, what is Taoism? Well, Taoism is quite simple. Taoism is a pile of diamonds covered in shit. And you just wipe off some more shit and find another diamond. It's a good day to be me.
Yeah.
This is self-realized by that moment. So what does that mean? It means that if you walk under a ladder and you believe, from the belief to the knowing, that 3 bad things are going to happen to you, I can promise you 3 bad things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Whereas you walk under that ladder and you believe to the knowing that 3 great things are going to happen to you, that's exactly what will take place. It will transpire because you're moving the needle from inverted to extroverted. And that yin and yang then merges as one, and then you have the epiphany. And so regardless of whatever resonance is permeating this physical body as a barometer, you have the mastery to direct it any way you want. That's why alchemy for Taoism is so potent, and that's why people allure to it. Now, I would say problematically, when you're on that path and you're mastering these things, and I teach people, I've only met 3 people that can levitate in my lifetime, and they're like, "Well, Jufu, you're a master, you're a Taoist priest. What do you mean only 3? You're not one of them?" No, 2 of them were Indonesian Kundalini masters.
Wow.
Of Indonesia, and the third one was one of my students, and they're like, "Well, why aren't you levitating?" Because I couldn't give a shit about levitating. It doesn't move my needle. It doesn't. What I want to see is mental, emotional, physical, spiritual healing. That excites me. Now, I'll teach you these if you meet the requirement of the stress adaptation to measure to that level of resonance. I will give you. It's a formula. That's all it is. Just like you have a formula with astrology, it's a formula of cultivation that meant for the seeker to the knower through the experiential moment. And it cannot come any other way. So your absolute truth, I always tell people, if someone has an absolute truth, they come to you and go, "I have the absolute truth," about face and run. Because your absolute truth is your absolute truth. What you know is the most important thing, and the only truth is your truth. And so that will be met with the experience. So, when people get a definitive, destiny, that could be problematic because most people are not mastered enough in their abilities to resonate and realize that they move the needle to the middle. So then they will lay that down as their framework, and they will feed into that belief system because it's met with the curiosity and their hope that something is real, because this is what is the hopium. This is the gas that fuels the fire that turns something into a belief system. If it stays in a belief system, the belief system to the knowing is met with experience. So if you continually repeat it and go, "Well, I know life sucks. I know that there's a certain path. I know that this is the only way. I know that all these things." And when it comes to cosmology in relation to Taoists, we have 12 animals, we have 5 elements, and the 18 point, which most people don't refer to because this is the illusion, right? People are like, "Hang on, that's the highest point of completion for a Taoist." There's actually an 18 point to this whole experience of cosmology. And they're like, "Well, there's no such thing. We don't talk about that. What are you talking about?" The 18 point is you are all things at the same time. That means that, guess what? Oh, I woke up. It's 2025. It's the year of the snake. I'm shit out of luck. I'm a pig. No. You are everything. Imagine every trait of every potential is yours. But you must meet with the substance. The detachment to attaching is where you get into the secret source, which is cultivational practice. So that means that when you're in that present moment, you're no place, no person, no thing. You're all places, all people, all things. And that center point will be determinative by your ability to direct with your attention, which is the most valuable commodity of this realm, dimension, whatever we call it, material. So your attention will be met with your intention. And because you are now the present moment, the void, which is like you're going beyond the personality, you're going beyond the soul, the spirit, whatever you want to call it. You're going beyond the animation that is the consciousness. Beyond all that is the creation. The creator is the primordial mother. So you are moving back beyond. When you are unified, all bets are off. You're not asking yourself, "Can you please heal this person, universe?" You are the freaking universe. But that is only met with experience and a mastery of cultivation. And so when you get to that point of ascension, because within Taoism, it's the physical body, energy body, spirit body, sun body, earth body, moon body, oneness body, ultimate body, and then being. Because channeling is this direct source. You go back to all the Taoist canons, all the way back. That's how Jade Emperor mentored Jade Yellow Emperor, and the universe mentored both of them to give them the channeled information that made it possible that we have an infrastructure Taoist metaphysics, Taoist astrology, Taoist cosmology. All this stuff is met with someone accessing that information, and then the rippling effects of the resonance that meets that goes, oh yeah, Carmen's, she's speaking my language. I got whatever she's saying. I want more of it. Give it to me now, because my whole body is reverberating. Because if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And all that stuff goes out the window. And there's nothing more that we need to talk about. I can literally, and lately it's really exciting for people to go into light language, or 30 years ago when I have someone coming to me with a psychotic break, and they've been diagnosed with a personality disorder, or furthermore something that is so inverted that they have no hope of breaking free from that. You're schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And within that space, as a Taoist priest, I'm an exorcist. I exercise those energies.
Yeah.
And all it is teaching someone how to liberate that energy. And their lens of perception is bringing in and calling in what they perceive as reality. You want to see ominous, dark, low frequential sort of states. That is created by the seeker.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see anything for 20 years. Like just recently, I just said that, and all of a sudden, of course, they start lining up. I hadn't done an exorcism in 10 years. All of a sudden, poof, I've got 40 out the door. And once they're met with the realization that they can tune their own tuning fork through these events of liberating the energy, whatever that entity is. I've never met an entity that's overseeing or commandeering someone's attention that cannot be met instantaneously with returning to what is their inverted experience. What is that? What is that? Well, their lack of patience, their lack of acceptance, their lack of love. These are things that are ingredients within their condition that has brought them to that place. And this entity, furthermore, is feeding on the inverted effects. And the second you return them to that resonance, the energy dissipates, it disappears, and never returns. And all of a sudden, hang on, the voices in my head are gone. Well, you have dominion over that now. You have the controlling ability to tune your fork however you choose to, instead of surrendering it to something else that tells you that you have no relevance, no potency, no power within your own journey, which is fundamentally disempowering, nurturing victimhood, nurturing a fear-based state that nothing happens. So I refer to my mother is because she has asthma, furthermore emphysema, and she was diagnosed in her 30s, not after I was born, that she was going to die before she's 50. Like, years to get over it, it's going to happen. I'm real sorry, I can't help you. Now, she fed into that. Now, even if you go back to something as watered down as the placebo effect, when you are embodied in your belief system, you will materialize that and create that as your truth. Or furthermore, if you want to go to neurology, let's look at the mirroring effect. I've had 1,000 people at one time in a healing physically. And what happens when you put 1,000 people in a healing event? They come with their mental, emotional, physical, spiritual deficiencies that need to be met. When you have a potency of 1,000 people, they all have a group consensus. They merge together. The potency of the energy is second to none, and you witness miracles everywhere. Bang, 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 bang. I just love it. All I'm doing as a recipient, as a receiver, as an observer, as the present moment, is connecting the dots and just infusing that energy, and you watch it happen. The healing's instantaneous. It's not met with a progression. But placebo is the placebo. So her biggest evidence is no matter how much I go into the needle of the negative, shit always happens to me. Perfect shit, good shit, every day, all day long. And now she's in her 80s going, I'm just getting ready for the turn of my 100th year. And I am so excited for the new century because I'm going to keep on. Someone 50, 60 years ago said, no, you're going to die. You won't make it at 50. Just get used to that. And say, who say you? Oh, well, you're the person in the white coat. And I always tell people skepticism is a great place to start to realize that the only thing is your truth. So if someone goes, this is going to happen to you, You must meet it with your belief system. If you believe that, then that will happen to you. So it's that resonance that takes place. It's like when you said, "Oh, I took a break from it, I came back to it." You just went, "Oh, I'm back on the resonance."
Yeah.
I've decided to sit there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 50 people turn up and go, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And
Yeah.
you're like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this is awesome," because you are that mastered state.
Yeah.
And people are just gravitating to what they know is the truth. Within our space, if I walk into a room, there's only two things that happen in a room. Someone is either gravitated to me or repulsed by me, because this is the material that we're operating in. That's all.
Yeah.
And so that resonance from me, my resonance that I master and cultivate on a daily basis, that is a default now, I don't even process it,
Yeah.
is to return someone to whole.
Yeah.
And so if you are faced with that wholeness, many people will just open arms, walk into that wholeness. But then if you're so inverted in a yin presence, which isn't always positive in the sense of the experiencer, because you're so inverted with the energy, it will perceive as a negative state. And you will be met with a resonance that is helping you, is drawing that yin out and bringing it back to the set. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm an asshole. I don't like you. You're a this, that, something else. And it's all your fault. And it will show up in your experience at that very moment.
Yeah.
Does all that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, when you're looking at all these things, the permanence is mastered by the individual seeker.
Yeah.
Your destiny is determinative by your belief system that is only met with a knowing. So,
Yeah.
if I had a penny for how many times there are mastered doctors of Chinese medicine that have spent years and they couldn't raise someone's frequency to witness just a very infantile expression of divinity, which would be a physical healing.
Yeah.
They know all these things. Well, I know which meridian line and how long it is and what that is and how many needles I need to put in it to evoke the physiological response. And it means nothing because they don't believe it. Like I come across magicians, illusionists. I love those guys because they're the biggest skeptics, and they use the sleight of hand to manipulate their audience to believe, hey, look, I'm going to play this psychokinesis thing. It's called PK touch. And I'm like, okay, awesome. I love watching it. They get two people facing each other. They close the eyes of one person and leave the other eyes open. And then that person with the eyes closed, they go and touch the person with their eyes open. They touch their nose. And the person with their eyes closed, you ask them a question. Did you feel anything? They're like, yes, someone touched my nose. Everyone goes, oh, wow. Now, this is a biofield integration for a more physics sort of based thing. If we go to parapsychologists, some of my friends, this is what we call psychokinesis. Furthermore, this is what we call within Taoism the Fajun, the substance. This is the Qi. This is the energy. And I show them, and they're sleight of hand. So what you don't realize is at some point where you're focusing on the person with the eyes open, the illusionist touches the person with their eyes closed, yet you never saw it because it was so slight. And because there's a pause and you have to ask them, did you feel that? And it could have happened 5 minutes beforehand. It doesn't matter. And then they touch their nose. They go, did you feel that? It's like, yeah, I felt my nose touched. Now, this is all illusionary for many skeptics of magic from a entertainment perspective, but this is very normal in relation to mastered state of energy potential, which is psychokinesis.
Yeah.
Do that at will. It's very easy to do. Now, this is validation. What I find is when my students get validated, they get excited. What I find problematic is when they go, I just mastered this state, telepathy, telekinesis, and then they stay there and they go, this is my identity. I'm a psychic. I'm a medium. I'm a healer. Which what happens is it starts to congregate in that one place that eventually turns into contraction because it will complete and then birth again.
Yeah.
And so when someone fixates on that thing, instead of consuming it, returning, liberating the energy, as you reclaim it and then you expand again, you stay contracted. And
Yeah.
this starts to show problematic effects of, oh my goodness, why does my life suck? You can still acquire that
Yeah.
super sensory perception, yet absorb it, liberate it, and then return to the creation.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is it's now on a default, and that ability to access it is
Yeah.
second to none. But most people tend to fixate.
Yeah.
I'm a medical intuitive. I'm a
Yeah.
clairvoyant. I'm a channeler. It just
Yeah.
so happens I do all that stuff and teach people that stuff, but it's not about
Yeah.
one specific aspect, because that becomes the congregation and the culmination of that energy that will eventually turn into a stagnated event that will continue to contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love everything is energy, and our thoughts, our mind is powerful. Definitely. I'm gonna have to get going pretty soon, but I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, this has been amazing. See, we went over time. Look at that. I did forewarn you. I
You
forewarned
did, you did.
everything is energy based. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the substance. That's the currency that we work in, and it's all
yeah,
determinative by the experiencer.
yeah,
So a lot of people these days throw out the theory or the foundational stuff, and they are only met with what they experience to be known.
yeah,
So it's like you and I are steeped. I used Taoist
yeah,
monastic path of being ordained in two lineages of Taoism to make sense of what happened to me instantaneously over 36 years ago. So I used that as a path to
yeah,
make sense. But
yeah,
for me, it happened instantaneously. So what does that mean, Jifu? Third person, love that stuff. What it means is you can be self-realized and self-mastered right now. It doesn't mean that you have to spend a lifetime. And a lot of people tend to get confused that, oh, well, it's not happening to me because I don't have the gifts. Well, I'm telling you, you have all the gifts. It's like, well,
yeah,
no, that's not what someone told me. This is a fundamental mistake, because
yeah,
now they're met with a belief system that is being watered by a
yeah,
knowing of someone else. And then because they haven't felt into that adaptation of that stressor that will continue to expand, they are in
yeah,
that belief system that will be met by their knowing because someone else told them what it is. What is the true nature of reality?
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah,
And so when people come to you and they continually repeat an experiences that are validated from their experience, that is
mhm,
what I'm talking about.
yeah,
And they're like, I'm sold. This stuff absolutely works for me, because there's no other way.
yeah,
And I will refer back to the first incantation within the Tao Te Ching, which we call the magical register. The way to walk is not the way. The name that is named is not the name. Tao is both named and nameless. That is your truth. That is your reality. And so when met with that, you realize that symbiosis, that bellows effect, that contracting and expanding is all that's necessary for you to decipher your reality, and realize that you can jump on that wave, that tsunami, and you can ride that. And then as it starts to simmer and return back to the ocean, you will see another one that is a creation, and then you move from that and enter into it. And that's really the simplicity of the path for a Taoist anyway.
yeah. That's interesting. No, thanks for sharing that.
Well, I thank you sharing your incredible understanding and what you do, because I find it absolutely refreshing and energizing,
Yeah,
because this is what's necessary. Wisdom, teaching, and understanding is necessary to the truth.
yeah,
Um, and your truth will be met by your experience,
yeah,
whatever that is.
absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. This has been amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm going to do your interweb and social sphere stuff under this podcast,
Sure.
where people can find you. Right now, you referred to you're not doing sessions, or you are doing sessions,
Oh, yeah.
or you're doing
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I'm doing sessions, consultations, classes. I have some classes this summer. I'm teaching online in the UK. And I have them, I'm on social media, so Facebook and Instagram, and people can visit my website, carmenturnerschott.com. And you can contact me through there if you're interested in any of the classes I have coming up or consults. Absolutely. Would love to do some charts and meet people. Yes, thank you.
So in closing, last question, what's your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Spiritual consciousness. My definition of spiritual consciousness is, I believe that we all are connected to the source, and it's within us.
Amen to that, my friend. Hallelujah.
It's not outside us. It's inside of us. We're one with everything and everyone.
Right. And a macro to a micro, as someone who follows some of her it's so generic. It's like talking head stuff, and everyone says it, but they don't truly understand it. I mean, you go to a face, a hand. These are all reflexology and furthermore face reading, some of the stuff that's more ancient in Chinese Qigong methods of realization, but it transmutes through everything. Is it limited by anything? No.
Yeah.
The present moment is all you have. This is your entry level, your Luke Skywalker to your Death Star moment of self-realization.
Yeah.
And with that, I am going to thank you, my dear friend, for all your wisdom teaching and your understanding of astrology, because that's necessary for people to meet that ancient teaching and for them to use it on their path and come to you and find out the deeper nature of it. And thank you so much for being. And I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you in the next one, guys.